just thought this would be a great opportunity during the exhibition to have our great friend Corey Sabin interview all the talents within KK&W's walls. And I think our first person today that's going to spend a little time with Corey is Lisa Carroll. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Corey and Lisa, and I'm going to turn my camera off, but listen very closely.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you to the team at KK&W. I'm Corey Sabin and Lisa Carroll. It's so wonderful to be with you and talk about what it takes to find the perfect chef and make that symbiotic relationship between the back of the house and the front of the house. So Lisa, if you could, I know we're on a time crunch, but let's get into it. What are the qualities that a club should look for in an executive chef?
Oh, well, lots of great qualities. Of course, they need to be able to cook. And I know they're not going to be working, the line necessarily, but they need to be able to train and understand and teach and all of that. So certainly culinary skills are extremely important. But one reason we get called for searches often is because they may have the culinary skills, but sometimes executive chefs, as other folks in the industry, they don't have the leadership skills it takes. And so most of the time when we do searches, that's one of the top things that clubs are looking for are chefs with really good leadership skills. So, that's the we, not me kind of an attitude, somebody who really brings the team into the decision-making process even, it lets them come up with some menu items, have some fun competition there, gives the team credit, but takes the blame themselves. That kind of a mentality is a real service mentality. They need to have processes and procedures in place for prep lists and recipes with pictures and really solid instructions and great onboarding skills as well, not just throwing someone on a station and saying, welcome to the club, here's where we're going to put you, but really spend some time with them, onboarding them properly, not just from the club's orientation perspective, but really a good solid orientation in the kitchen. So I'd say those leadership skills, good communication skills are also very important. Of course, financial skills, managing food costs, labor costs, being able to manage a budget. Those are all things that I think that are really important in an executive chef. And like I said, those leadership skills are really key. They also have to have a pretty, as you mentioned, Corey, a symbiotic relationship with the front of the house. So asking questions about their relationship with the front of the house and how they kind of meld and work as a collaborator with the front of the house team is really important. Being part of the front of the house lineup and teaching the servers about the food, that whether it's a feature or a new menu item, letting them taste it. And not just one, I watched one chef doing a lineup, it was a few years ago, and I just happened to be there over dinner time and wanted to see the chef in action. And he just kind of sat down at a table with the servers were standing around him, and he just kind of, this, these are our new specials, this is the new, and not engaging at all, not excited about the food at all. So having that excitement and really willingness to not just teach the heart of the house staff in the kitchen, but also teach the servers as well.
How do you find the right chef and marry them to the right club, if you will? Because you listed a bunch of attributes, and sure, that sounds like the dream chef that someone would make in a lab, but how do you find the right person so that any potential GM that's listening can learn more about your process?
Well, that's part of our secret sauce. If I tell you, I'll have to kill you. No, I'm kidding. Really, obviously, for us as a search firm, we spend a lot of time up front really understanding the club and the needs of the club. If you're a general manager of the club, of course, you already understand that, but it never hurts. This is something that we always do with our searches, is we do a culinary culture survey, just a survey monkey survey. Anybody could set one up. and share that with the house committee, the department heads, the board, other committees that work closely with the executive chef. Heck, you could ask the whole membership if you wanted to, but really find out what everybody is looking for, because you may have, you know, your thoughts, but it's great to get input from others. That's one thing we do with every club that we work on and with every search that we conduct. But we really spend time getting to not only understand the skill sets that are needed, but also the culture of the club and the culture of the team. So that's really important. And then, you know, putting some information out there. Obviously, you need to post it and outreach and put as much information about the club as possible in that posting, not just, you know, the job description. You really want to entice people to your club, not just you know, state it. And then as you're interviewing candidates, really, because you've done that survey, you're really focused on what's most important. So ask questions that are related to that, not just culinary questions, and certainly you can have them do a tasting from the culinary standpoint, and back to the tasting in just a minute, but also from the leadership skills standpoint, ask questions that will shed some light on that. Let's see, references. You obviously want to definitely check references, and not just people these folks have reported to, but also people who've reported to these candidates as well. That's how you really get a real 360 about the candidates. We also do a behavioral assessment. Then we benchmark that against the top chefs that we've placed. So if you do, I highly recommend doing behavioral assessments when you hire anyone on the team at your club. But that's another thing that really helps understand not only what they're telling you, but understanding a little bit behind the scenes as well.
What if there's a GM listening that has a challenge with a chef? What are the warning signs, and when's the right time to make a change?
Good question. You know, there are several things you can do to keep a chef, and it may not be the chef that is the issue. So let's talk first things, you know, what you can do to keep a chef. One is not micromanage. Give them goals and objectives, but let them come up with how they can get it done, and then give them the tools to get it done. You also want to just support them from a professional development standpoint. Make sure they have the equipment they need, and not only just the equipment they need. I mean, having stoves that work, and, you know, just basics that I see in some clubs when I walk through their kitchens and hear about the issues that the culinary team has. Make sure they have the tools that they need, because there could be part of the issue. You know, another thing is having the labor available. If you've got a chef that's, and I hear it all the time, they're working 7 days a week in season and you know, morning, noon, and night. I mean, nobody should be expected to do that. I don't care if you're front of the house or back of the house. You have to have enough staff to give somebody a day off, even in the, you know, the height of season. So I think that's important too. Having equipment like a pizza oven, something that's going to get them excited about work, those kinds of things. Rebranding a restaurant, or perhaps even a theme for one night a week, rebranding the restaurant just for that theme on a slow night, would really get most chefs excited about that. Now, if you are doing that, if you're supporting the chef and giving them those opportunities, and they're still not coming around, and probably the biggest warning sign for me would be, and the biggest killer of service, is a bad culture in the kitchen, whether it's servers afraid to go into the kitchen, or catering directors that are afraid to ask a question or change a BEO at the last minute. You know, if there's some pot throwing, I know that's extreme, but you get the idea. When there's that kind of a negative culture in the kitchen, I don't care if it's a line cook or something, if that's not fixed right away, then you do have a problem at the top. And if you have spoken to that person and written them up, and it continues to be an issue, then I think that's the time to start thinking about replacing that chef.
You know, and prior to that, you had mentioned keeping them happy and giving them all the accoutrements, all the tools, the pizza oven, et cetera, to keep them happy. But for a GM who's not familiar with the back of the house aspect in the kitchen, that comes from a different background, how often do you think they should collaborate and meet with the chef to just keep that dialogue going to make sure they're on the same page?
You know, I know some folks that the chef comes in the GM's office every morning just to check in, at least weekly, but even just a quick casual, you know, check in the mornings, just touch base, what's going on, any issues or anything. I think a daily would be great. If that's too much to ask, then at least weekly with the GM, just to you know, keep everybody up to date and keep good tabs.
So we could use the pun, hey, what's cooking? But we don't have to.
Oh, and you know what? Something else, never hurts to cross-train folks in the kitchen. I mean, have a server work in the kitchen for a day, have a cook work as a server, shadow a server for a day. That really helps get people to put themselves in the other person's shoe and share some empathy. And why not have the GM tuck their tie in their shirt and roll up their sleeves and see what it's like if they don't have any experience in food and beverage? Why not?
Absolutely. You also mentioned competitions. Tell us a little bit about that and what's the value of that?
You know, when we talk culinary competitions, that's another way to get and keep a chef engaged. And if they have that interest, definitely support them in that. That can bring so much benefit to the club and the culinary team. In fact, the whole membership gets excited when the chef competes or the sous chef competes, for example. It provides networking opportunities for the chef. It's a great recruiting tool because you get the word out there that chef is competing and keeping their skills up to date. It brings humility when you're competing, and also organization. There's just so many possibilities there and so much that really benefits the club as a whole and the team. Specifically too, even when the executive chef is the only one that's competing.
So if you're doing all those things right, how long can you expect the chef to last?
You know, club benchmarking, I think in 2016, put together a report that reported that chefs typically, I think the median was 5 years. I think that's really good. When I see chefs in the restaurant industry, you know, turning over much quicker, and certainly the chefs we place are higher than that. But I think all of those things that we discussed about how to keep a chef can really help to extend that beyond those 5 years.
And then, of course, when is it time to make a change in the kitchen and maybe give a refresh, bring in some new food items or different cuisine opportunities?
Yes, definitely. Of course, everybody should be changing their menu at least seasonally, but some chefs will have a certain area of the menu that changes every week. Of course, you have to be sure you've got a team that can handle that too, and the training that goes into that, both front of the house and heart of the house. But that's something that keeps everybody on their toes and interested as well, including the members.
Absolutely. Well, Lisa, this was very insightful on the back of the house, very helpful. I particularly liked that you couldn't share some of the secret sauce, but KK&W goes behind the scenes and does that evaluation and has a culture assessment as well. That's very powerful, and that could really help with the growth and the leadership of the full team. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Corey. I look forward to seeing you at a Cardinals spring training game.
Absolutely. Be there
Bye,
Saturday.
everybody.
All right. So
Thanks, Corey.
you got it, Tom.
I think we're sliding right into our next person is going to be Jody Cunningham, our newest addition. And again, I'm just going to slide out here, Corey, and let you take it away.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Jody, how are you today?
I am well. It's nice to actually see your face. I think the last time we saw each other or talked to each other, it was on a podcast, so I didn't get to see you. Now I get to see you.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Jody Cunningham's a wonderful addition to the Kopplin team. She can help your club with overcoming some HR challenges and put a plan in place. Also really help you maximize the most out of your employees and figure out what their strengths are through a simple test that she can offer that will help you understand how to manage them, how to work with them, and most importantly, where they're going to succeed. Jody has a vast background working with the Four Seasons, the LA Rams, and now she's bringing her talents to the Kopplin team as well. So Jody, we're limited on time, but what are some of the biggest HR challenges facing the club industry?
Oh, that's a loaded question, right? There's always a lot of challenges, but really in a nutshell, it's finding, retaining, and developing talent, right? It's finding the right people, getting in the right seats on the bus, developing them so that they have all the either functional skills and or behavioral skills to be successful. Because ultimately in the end, we're trying to achieve results in our clubs. And so we can't do that without the right people. So it's really finding the right talent and developing them and investing in them and investing in ourselves as managers and leaders to be better at managing and leading people. Those are some of the highlights that I think are probably most important and the biggest challenges from a people perspective. I also think from maybe a more technical HR perspective, some of the bigger challenges is technology. With your team, as you bring people on board, newer generations into the workplace, they expect a different experience. And a lot of it is from a technology perspective. If we are still filling out leave of absence forms or vacation forms and putting them in a box, younger employees are expecting that to be all technology driven. It should be done online. I should be able to manage my employee profile, be able to use some sort of technology to engage with the club. And that's really new and different. So from a technology perspective, that's an area that I think in the future, the very near future, we're going to have to get much better at. For us to continue to recruit and retain top talent, especially with the younger generations coming into the workplace.
What do you do if you have a manager who's resistant to that?
That never happens. I don't know what you're talking about. I think, you mentioned early on the assessments that I do. I work a lot with behavioral assessments with the predictive index, and really it depends on how somebody's wired. When people are resisting change, it could be for a variety of different reasons. It can be because they're uncomfortable with change, because they don't understand the why behind change. Maybe they don't like the change because it wasn't their idea. There's a lot of different reasons why people may be resistant to change. So really, we need to peel back the onion on everybody that's on the team and figure out what is it that they need to feel comfortable with this change moving forward. And so understanding how somebody is wired is a big predictor in trying to figure out what do I need to do with my team to help them embrace new and different in my department or within my club.
So essentially that would fall into perhaps an HR audit. So what is that and how can it help a club?
HR audits, I know it sounds scary, but I promise it isn't. It doesn't hurt a bit. I simply would come in and take a look at all of your talent stuff, all your people processes. I do an audit of the entire club from a talent perspective and an HR perspective to see, at the very basic level, the foundations of, do we have the right processes, procedures, policies in place, things to keep us safe from a legal perspective, but also making sure that we're creating a great work environment for people to thrive in. So an HR audit would consist of that. It would also consist of us diving into your recruitment processes. What's the flow of recruitment when it happens? Who owns it? How do we determine who we interview? How do we determine what that experience is like? Because we want to make sure that the applicant experience is exceptional, because you're basically trying to sell them on coming to work at your club. So you better make sure that you're doing a really good job from a sales perspective. So we'll dive into your recruitment processes, see what you're doing well, and then provide some ideas on how you can enhance that. We'll dive into your training and development processes, whether it's onboarding, it is orientation. Do you already have one in place? If so, is it effective? Is it working the way it's supposed to work? If not, I'll provide some ideas on how we can enhance that. We'll look at performance management. Do you do performance reviews? Do you need to do performance reviews? What's your philosophy on that? We can dig into what we're trying to accomplish as a club, make sure we have a performance management system that's really supporting those goals as a club. So a lot of different areas that we can dive into. Certainly employee engagement. Are we measuring engagement? Do we utilize a survey? How do we figure out when things are going right? How do we figure out when things are not going right? And then once we know that, how are we solving the problem? So there's a lot of different ways through an HR audit we can figure out what's going well, what's not going well in terms of our employee and talent strategy. Because ultimately, in the end, we want to make sure that we have processes and procedures in place that are supporting the club's strategy in whatever we're trying to accomplish as a club. So that's really what an HR audit's all about.
How long does that take?
Oh, I could take months if I needed to, but no, it's usually a couple days of pre-work where I learn a little bit. I'll request some documents, understand kind of the behind the scenes. Then I'll do an on-site visit to get to know your club, get to meet some of your leaders, feel a little bit of the culture and the strategy, and to be able to interact with some of the people, and then take all of that information and analyze it and figure out what's working and what's not. So all in, I think in terms of gathering the data, it could be 2, 3, 5 days of gathering data, and then that gets turned around in just a couple weeks so that we can put an action plan together on how to solve some of those challenges that you may be having.
So that was my next question. So after the audit is complete, what's next? And what does that process look like?
Well, we go through suggestions. So I provide all kinds of suggestions. And if you're a club that wants to take all those suggestions and do the work yourself, I'll give you all kinds of great templates. I'll give you some suggestions on how to implement things, what they should look like. And then you take all that information back to your club and then work as a team to try to implement some of those things. Or if there are things that you need help with, that you just don't have the bandwidth to do, whether it's putting together new employee orientation, building a recruitment process, I will come in and do that. And then I'll teach your managers how to follow it. So basically, rather than you having to create it, I'll do that work for you. And then I'll train your managers and your leaders on how to utilize the new systems so that you can be most effective on the talent side of things. So really 2 different ways to do it. You can either take the recommendations and do them yourself, or you can bring me in to build different processes and programs to kind of accomplish those goals.
So once that's in place and a team is off and running and they've taken your approach and they're using the tools, how important is a refresher?
Oh, refreshers are really important because, we have to keep, as adult learners, we have to keep hearing things over and over for us to utilize them. So it's important that we're constantly keeping those important processes, procedures, strategies top of mind. And that's one of the things that I provide with my clients are regular check-ins. So we do quarterly check-ins after we've executed whatever implementation we've focused on. And we check in to see how things are doing. Just like with anything that you're doing at your club, you need to keep checking in to see, is this still accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish? Is this still helping us achieve our goals, especially from a people perspective? And if it's not, then how do we change? I almost used that pandemic word, pivot. That's not my favorite word. It's been overused. I almost said we need to pivot. So we're not going to pivot. What do we need to change to make sure that we're continuing to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish?
I'm curious, how do you manage different personalities when you're going through this audit? Someone who might be more headstrong than another person.
Well, that's really my wheelhouse, and my secret sauce is actually the predictive index. So I usually, when I go through this audit, the senior leaders that are a part of it, I'll have them do a PI so that I know how to interact with them. I can then adapt my style to meet their needs as a leader, so that they're getting and consuming the information in a manner that fits them and is productive for them. And also as we're looking at the team, right? If I understand how somebody is wired from a GM, COO perspective, right? Every GM is wired differently. And so they need to surround themselves with different levels of talent, different strengths that maybe they don't have as a leader. So my role is also to consult and help guide the building of leadership teams, making sure that we're building them effectively. And we have all those behaviors that we need on the team to be effective in achieving our business strategy.
Well, you shared with me the PI and I took it and you've taken it as well. Tell everybody else what that is and what that looks like and the value.
Yes, it was like I saw into your soul, right, Corey?
Exactly.
Ultimately, it's a behavioral assessment. I mean, there's a lot of behavioral assessment tools out there. I love PI because that's what I've always used. I used it as a PI, as an HR executive, and it was hugely helpful in me building my people strategies and all the different parts and pieces of the HR puzzle, if you will. But it's just a quick 5-minute assessment that tells me your natural drives. And once I understand your drives, now I know what you need from me as your leader. And I can also predict how you're going to behave. And when we align those drives with how somebody's wired to the job that they're in, we can better predict performance and also understand maybe why performance problems are happening. If we understand how somebody's wired and we understand what drives and behaviors are critical for a specific job, then we can see, well, that's why this keeps happening. Maybe that's why this problem is occurring, or maybe this is why we're not accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish. And then we can put together coaching and development plans to help this individual get better in some of those areas that maybe it's just not a natural strength. Doesn't mean that you can't adapt. We all adapt every day, but it does mean that it doesn't come naturally. So that's going to have to be a learned trait if we're going to be successful in certain parts of our job. So that's where PI can be hugely valuable. And we basically implement it within the organization, teach everybody how to use it so that they can use it on a daily basis to better coach and manage their teams and create and collaborate more effectively with one another.
And the session's called Solving the HR Puzzle, but so often it seems like everything you've shared is very helpful proactively as well for clubs. So what's something they should be asking themselves before even considering hiring you?
First of all, the biggest, most important question is, what are we trying to accomplish as a club? Right? As we are filling a position, why are we doing it? Are we doing it simply because somebody left, so we think that we're just supposed to fill it? Well, that's not very strategic. We need to make sure that as we are filling roles and we are looking for talent, we're looking for talent that's going to help us achieve our business objectives. Many times, talent and HR, it's an afterthought, right? It's I'll take any warm body I can because I just need an extra set of hands. Well, that's not going to help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. So when we are being strategic in building a people plan, we need to do that based on the club's business strategy. So are we looking to drive change and innovation? Well, that's going to take a certain type of leader, a certain type of individual to be successful. Are we looking to enhance the member experience? Man, our member experience scores are low and we need to get those numbers up. We need to make sure that the member experience is exceptional. Well, that's going to take a certain type of person or a certain team of people. So our business strategy has to influence our people strategy. So ultimately, that is where we have to start. We need to understand what we're trying to accomplish, and then we start to plug in the people component to it.
And how often does that evolve as technology evolves, as you were alluding to earlier?
It's constant, right? We're constantly diagnosing. I'm doing this circle because it's never ending. We're constantly diagnosing, is what we're doing working? Our business strategy has changed. I don't know, let's throw a pandemic into the mix. That wasn't the plan at the beginning of last year. Now, all of a sudden, our business strategy has changed. Going from interacting in person in a restaurant with our members to now doing to-go orders. How does that change the employee dynamic with our members? How do we make sure that they're feeling connected and they feel that level of service that we want to make sure that they feel? So constantly diagnosing, is what we're doing working, and how is our business strategy changing, and how do we need to change and flex to meet the strategy?
Well, Jody, you really enlightened us on some of the HR challenges and the proactive approach that clubs can take to really motivate their employees to get the most out of them and to highlight their strengths, and also identify some of the weaknesses so they know how to handle and approach them. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It was nice to see you again. Thanks for your time.
Always great to see you. Tom, back to you.
Thanks, Jody. I think we have our good friend Annette next, who did a great job in her class the other day. It was a fantastic session, but I will again slide away and let Corey and Annette get down to it. Corey?
All right, thanks, Tom. Annette, great to be with you.
Great to see you, Corey. How's it down in Florida today?
It is gorgeous here today. Let's talk about F&B training with Annette, who taught me one of my new favorite expressions, never give a mouse a cookie. And I would like you to explain that if you could.
Oh, never give a mouse a cookie, because he'll want a glass of milk.
Exactly. I think that's so great. So let's talk about what a visit to a club would look like from Annette Whitley.
Very customizable, Corey, and depending on where you're at and what you're looking for, we can really customize what we're going to do at the club. I first and foremost really try and understand where you're at with your organization and your people and your team, what your training materials look like. Do you have a really good standards training manual that has a comprehensive onboarding program that ties into that? We talk about where we're at with standards. Do you have clearly defined standards? And usually we start there, because if you have standards in place, I can help put systems in place to measure those standards and really to know if you're winning. And I like the sporty analogy. You know, you can be playing around. I play tennis fairly often in the summer, and I can just be hitting back and forth with a friend and not keeping score. But the second I start to keep score, I start to really pay attention. And so do you have standards in place, and then do you have systems in place to really support those standards within your organization? And I get a sense of where you're at with that. What we do a really great job at in clubs is that the people and the membership and the recognition and empathy, and often we will focus on that too, and focus on not just assuming that that happens, but that you're incorporating it into your training as well. And then we build out a schedule, which can be anywhere from one day to come in and just touch on a few topics, or a full week or more of training if we're doing an opening. So first and foremost, just understanding what your needs are, and then how I can help complement and support the amazing job that the club's already doing and the team that are already there, and help you to achieve where you want to be next.
So when you're talking about standards and systems, do a lot of clubs already have that in place? And if they do, how often should they evolve?
Great question. And yes, a lot of clubs really have them in place. What I often find I'm doing though is just tweaking those and making sure that there's working with the team to make sure that they are feasible and they make sense. And that they are actually hitting those standards, and if they are measuring how they're hitting those standards. For example, within your sequence of service, if you have a standard that you need to greet members within 60 seconds of sitting down at the table, are you doing that for every single table? Is the server coming over and greeting the table? And are they doing it within 60 seconds? Are they doing it within 30 seconds? And how often are they hitting that standard? And are they testing the team on whether they're achieving it or not? We go through those and then train on them, and then talk about whether they work and update them. How often you have to update the standards? They're continually evolving. And one thing that I will always say is the only person that can change a standard is the member themselves. Right? The members can change the standard, and oftentimes as we evolve, members' preferences, likes, dislikes change standards. And there's a really interesting standard that has changed a lot over a number of years, and it's one I encounter a lot when I come to clubs. And I love Ritz-Carlton, wonderful brand. And about 20 years ago, Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, they all had a standard that said that you need to say "my pleasure," and that you need to use the guest name 3 times in every interaction. And that standard seems to have stuck across the industry everywhere. And actually the Ritz-Carlton and the Four Seasons, they no longer have the 3 times standard, because it actually got overused. And when they were testing their standards and when they were going to their hotels and resorts, they found that it became overly forced and insincere. So the standard now is, do you use the name in a natural and sincere manner, which I think is much more approachable to today's society, and maybe would work at your club or maybe wouldn't work at your club. And that's what it all comes down to. So I think your standards always need to be evolving and always need to be focused on your culture and your membership, and do they work for that environment?
And F&B is such a huge part of a club. So when someone has a Net Whitley come to their club, how long are you spending there?
That really depends on what your needs are. I have a comprehensive program, which is 4 or 5 days. And within that program, we spend the morning with the food and beverage leadership team and understanding the club and what is happening where, and taking a tour of the operations. Then I set the expectations with the leadership team. And this is critical, Corey. If the leadership team aren't engaged and aren't in every session, it's really hard for it to stick, and for them to then hold the team accountable to what I'm doing while I'm there. So really making sure the leadership team understand that they need to be present in every training and engaged, and that their team are looking to them as well to know that they've heard what I'm saying, and then the leaders know that the team have heard what I'm saying. So we kind of have a expectation setting session in the beginning, and then we walk through what we're going to be covering. And then I really take a dive into where are they? What are their team doing that they love and they want me to reinforce? How can I positively reinforce all of the great things that they're already doing? And then what are the things that they say over and over again that, just like we have with our moms and dads, well, mom says it, but dad says it in a different way. What can I say in a different way that helps reinforce the things that you're working on? And then we dive into every area of food and beverage. We learn about product, and we do lots of activities surrounding the product using your menu, your ingredients. We involve the culinary team. Then we actually taste food, we taste beverage, we pair things together. We talk about complementary pairings, contrasting pairings. We practice and role play through how do you describe the items on your menu, right? The difference between it's good, it's great, it's delicious, you'll love it, and actually saying, well, it's stacked and layered and topped with and combined with, and it's creamy and salty and briny, and like all those great words that add value to a food and beverage experience. And we take items from your menus and we practice how are we going to describe those items. And then we role play through different scenarios that they might encounter with the members. And we go through the entire sequence of service and talk about the things that we need to be doing with each step and the things that we probably shouldn't be doing with each step. And then we really talk about how that might play out in your club and your environment. And then we do a lot more role play, right? We throw different scenarios into the mix. We role play through tough questions like, sir, I need you to wear your mask. You know, how to handle those difficult questions at the host stand. And then we wrap up with the leadership team again. And often we end up talking about next steps, goals, communication, keeping the training alive as well. So it's kind of an overview of everything that we talk about while I'm on property. And again, it's customizable. Sometimes I'll just go into a property and we'll really just do a refresh of the sequence of service. And other times the sequence of service at your club may be clearly defined and the team are doing a great job of hitting those points, but you really want to focus in on the unscripted acts of kindness and what does that look like within food and beverage, and how can you train the team to better read the member and pay attention to a member that you see every day, but what are they wearing today? Who are they with today? What might change what you already know about them? And we go into detail about how do we train the team to do that and how do you make that a part of what you do every day?
I like it. I like it. So what if I'm a club or a GM with a smaller budget? How can I get you into my club without the big budget training?
Well, surprisingly enough, you know, we have a saying at Kopplin, Kuebler and Wallace, right? Quality isn't expensive, it's priceless. But actually, depending on what you're doing, I can come in and work with you within your budget and work with you within whether it's just there for a couple of days or whether it is there for a whole week. So I always tell people, don't be afraid to reach out and start the conversation, because we're happy to work with you. And I can be a long-term partner if you're overhauling your entire systems and standards, or I can come in and just do a one-day session to launch your Teams training as a refresh for the start of your season. And I know we're going to talk with Michelle in a few minutes here as well, but that's a program that we have that is just an approachable one-day program for the entire team. So don't be afraid to reach out. There's lots of things I do remote as well. I've done a number of Zoom sessions also with the entire team, just like we are now, where I can walk through, what it takes for you to update your standards training materials, and it's interactive, and we do some exercises and we use the breakout rooms. So there's many different ways that I can deliver training to teams, especially during these times where you may not want to have me on property. We can absolutely jump on a Zoom and do it that way.
And it seems like there's a lot of tangibles that are left behind for the club to really implement and for the team to learn from. From that point, you mentioned Michelle. Let's bring Michelle on as well. Michelle, if you can join us. And what we'll do is we'll talk about those 5 pillars of success. And Annette, I'll let you start off with that while Michelle is getting comfortable.
Yes. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Great. Just to touch on the tangibles before we move into that.
Absolutely.
I do always set clear goals before I leave a property, and I leave everybody with a post-visit report of what we've agreed on, what we're doing next, and who's accountable, and what the due dates are. So you have a nice document to leave there and continue on with and keep it all alive. So, Michelle, 5 pillars.
Yes. And I think that 5 Pillars is a program that Annette and I created we created it for many reasons, but it is a really fantastic program for just that. You want us to come in and kind of get you jump started and go over the basics and leave you with something that you can work through. It's a one-day jam-packed program, and actually I even see that we have somebody that's in the room that witnessed our program. Carl, you're in here. I see you. He's waving. And Annette, why don't you start off telling everybody a little bit about how this was birthed, and we'll tell them the benefits of us coming on property and trying it out for the day.
Actually, it's a funny story, and I don't know if I think it was Tom and Sam that we ran into, but
you tell it better with the accent. That's why
we don't know the genesis of this. We were actually, when we first joined the Kopplin, Kuebler and Wallace team, Michelle and I, we had flown into Palm Beach and we had a team meeting, and we had an afternoon free, and Michelle and I wanted to get to know each other a little better. So we decided the best way to do that was sitting by the pool. And we were brainstorming ideas, and we decided that, we had to work on something together, and we talked about the things we like to train on, and we birthed the 5 pillars. But the side story to this is we were new to the team, and we were coming in from the pool, and Michelle said to me, wouldn't it be terrible if we're coming in from the pool in our beach towels and we bump into the boys? And we did. We went into the elevator, and the boys walked into the elevator at that exact moment. So anyway, the 5 pillars that we cover really cover everything that your front of house team in any area would benefit from and need to be aware of. So Michelle, do you want to cover the first couple of pillars?
Absolutely. So we start off with service, the basics of service. Service 101. We move into teamwork. Well, just to give you the overview, service, teamwork, active listening, problem solving, and then handling complaints. And we give a nice, robust program on each of these pillars. We walk you through with it's a very interactive program where we touch on each of these buckets and really dive in. It's fun. It's got robust content, and everybody really gets a chance to really interact and comes away with some really actionable steps that they can take afterwards.
Give us a quick overview of Service 101.
So Service 101, we have an acronym that we use. And we walk through the importance of how you present yourself on the floor and the expected behaviors on the floor. And Corey, it really is a lot of things that we all intuitively know, but we may not necessarily remember to train our team on a regular basis. And, or if you have a large population of your team that are coming on board that are brand new, they just need to have a little polish. So how do you stand? How do you carry a tray? What's the appropriate verbiage to use? The importance of eye contact and smiling. I mean, now more than ever, the eye contact piece, and the tone of voice now more than ever as well, because of our masks. And of course you can see the smile behind a mask, but you really have to focus on how you communicate in a clear manner, because we have that barrier now when we're in front of the membership. And then we talk about recognition within that Service 101, and we focus in with the team that we're with on their tools for recognition and how they find those tools and what resources that they have available to them. And then we talk about what do we need to know about the member? And when we find those things out, how do we use them, and how do we use them in an appropriate manner? And how do we create moments of hospitality based off of the information we know? So that smart service.
Right.
So that's really an overview of the Hospitality 101 and the Service 101.
And that's
Creating moments of truth and memorable experiences that people walk away with.
Well, it seems real valuable. Now, if I'm a club GM and I want to learn more about the 5 pillars, what do I need to do? This is the softball, Michelle.
Really simple. Just email or call Annette or me, and we're happy to tell you all about the program. You know, like I said, it's you get a 2-for-1, and we 2-for-1, and we're lots of fun. So we come out,
We're very
we come on out for the day, and you know, and we work with the team, and it's pretty jam packed. So.
And Corey, before we kick it over to Michelle, we will also be teaching the team how to be careful that you don't give a mouse a cookie.
Yes.
That's in complaint handling and problem solving.
Yes.
Yes, I would think that falls into problem solving.
Yes, and the team, and then we also have some add-ons to this program, and I can touch on that, you know, in a moment too. You know, that goes into the team that we one of our pillars is teamwork, but we have some team building programs that are add-ons to this program, and our active listening pillar is quite a bit of fun as well, even more so, more important today, because obviously how we're communicating, and we have communication programs as well, communication workshops that are separate, but you know, it's so much more important today because how we're communicating is so different, because we are, you know, not really getting the full you know, the full body communication with the masks, and we have to be aware of the differences in how we're communicating today in the body language.
Yeah, and I would think too, generationally as well, you have older folks that want to have a conversation, and a lot of the younger folks that want to do it through text, and
Right.
just understanding the dichotomy of both of those. Well, Annette, thank you so much for sharing with us the F&B training. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Corey.
You're welcome. See you soon. And Michelle, let's get into those nuts and bolts of the do's and don'ts of resumes. So if you can, what are the top mistakes candidates make when submitting their resumes?
Well, I think one of the top mistakes that people make is just not being in the right mindset when they're actually crafting their resume. And, you know, the bottom line is you need to know, what is the resume? What is it? It's a marketing tool. And I think that that's the first mistake that people make, is not being in that mindset. Resume is a marketing tool, and you as the applicant, you're a product, the reader is the consumer, and you need to know, well, who are you marketing toward? Most people are marketing toward a search firm, which, you know, you could start with us. You're marketing toward, let's say, a general manager, or you're marketing toward a search committee. So you need to start with that thought process. I'm a product, this is a marketing tool, and I am marketing myself toward a consumer, that consumer being search committee, a general manager, a hiring manager, or a search firm. So as you're creating or crafting that resume, you need to start with that thought process. So when you're creating the resume, first things first, you want to make it very easy for that person who's reading the resume to identify who you are, how you potentially fit into their organization, and communicate quickly and concisely what is the value that you offer. So, you know, the next biggest mistake that people make is being applicant-centric and generic. So when being applicant-centric, meaning, you know, whenever I pick up a resume and there's either an objective statement or it's, you know, I want to bring my skills and my passion to XYZ club so I can, you know, help them to achieve their goals or something, you know, along those lines. Anything that I can cut and paste when I read a resume and slap on 1,000 other resumes is not effective. So what I want to see when I pick up a resume is, you know, who are you? How do you fit in? And what is it about you that's unique? And what is it that you offer that I need, you know, if I'm a hiring manager or as a search executive, that my client needs? So, you know, one of the exercises that I go through with the clients, the individual clients that I work with, is I say, you know, and I'll throw somebody under the bus. I see Kurt in the corner in my screen, so I'll throw Kurt under the bus here. So I'll say, well, let's say that you're at a conference like we are right now, and Kurt comes up to you and says, you know, I've got this great opportunity and I think you'd be perfect for it. But I've got 5 really strong candidates and their resumes are sitting on my desk. So tell me right here and right now, why you? And I'll throw those in the garbage. What are you going to say to Kurt right then and there that's going to move him to action?
And what's a good suggestion that someone should say? What
can you say? And I think you should always have that answer in your head. It's kind of like an elevator pitch. And then you're going to take that answer and put it into resume speak. And that becomes your value proposition statement on your resume. Because that opening paragraph, you've got a very short window, not even 6 seconds, when somebody is scanning your resume for them to say, oh, this person is interesting and I need to know more. So what can you say in that opening paragraph that's going to compel that reader to keep reading? You know,
is there an example you could share? For example, instead of objective, would you put my value or value I provide? And what would that typically be? Because everybody's passionate. Everybody can say, you know, driving sales or driving engagement.
Exactly. And that's why I can't even really give you an example, because it has to be unique. It has to be unique to the person that's writing it. So the test that I give is if you're reading it and as you're reading it, I call it the peanuts test. If you're reading it and as you're reading it, it starts to sound like the old Peanuts cartoons, wah, 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 then it's not very effective.
So how honest and open should you be?
You want to be really clear that you're the right person for the job. You know, so when somebody says to me, and when we have our sessions, oh, I'm really not that good at, you know, bragging about myself, I say very clearly, well, you better get good at it, because this is where you do it. If you're not going to brag about yourself, who is? You know, this is not that you need to be overly, you know, overly boastful, but you need to be clear. Hey, I'm who you want. This is your marketing tool. You're marketing yourself.
So how does the process work if someone wants assistance from you?
then they go to our resume career services page, and they select services, and we offer, you know, very nicely negotiated rates for CMAA members. And we have several different packages, and, you know, I have a process that we go through that's pretty introspective, not that painful, a little bit, but not too much. And, you know, we work pretty, it's a pretty in-depth process, and it's also a good process to go through because it does help to prepare you for the interview. Because if your resume is written properly, it should be a good prompter and a good blueprint for the interview itself.
What typically is a search committee looking for when they're reading that resume? I know you mentioned 6 seconds and make things stand out, but what are they looking for? What are some buzzwords or key thoughts?
You know, well, some of the things that I think are important, and from what I've heard from, you know, just being in the room, it's important to understand where a person has been, what's the scope of the environment that they've been in. So I think a lot of people miss that. You know, it's great to say that you're a general manager, but you know, what's the scope of the club? What's, you know, how many members? What type of club is it? What's the revenue? What's the F&B, you know, F&B sales? What kind of amenities do they offer? And then not just what's the job and what have you done, but what have you accomplished? And when you talk about what you've accomplished, you need to tell the whole story, not just give a list of tasks, but tell a full story. You know, what have you been challenged to do? What are the action steps you took in response to those challenges? What were the positive end results, the impact that you had, you know, in the overall operation? And then where are the metrics to support and quantify what you're saying?
So, you know, I'm of the generation that, you know, everything is supposed to be one bullet with a quick action statement. Are you saying you need to have supporting documents underneath that, and it should be more than 1 page?
If you have a tenured career and you can fit it all on 1 page, then I'm going to say you haven't accomplished very much. So, so it is a myth that a resume should be 1 page. If you are straight out of school and haven't had that much experience, then maybe your resume is 1 page.
Sure.
But if you're an experienced person, your resume is going to be 2 pages. I'd say that 90% of the resumes that I write are 2 pages. About 5% are going to be 3 pages. And a 3-page resume is perfectly acceptable if it's well written and it's justifiable. No reason why it can't be a 3-page resume. I don't write anything more than that. I don't think it's necessary, but a 2-page resume is generally what's needed to display a rich career.
And the highlight and the value of a cover letter?
Cover letter is very important, and there's always the debate. Do I need a cover letter? Do I not need a cover letter? Does anybody actually read it? The bottom line is we read them for sure. Our clients read them. We definitely encourage them to. You know, in our process, you must write it, not only write a cover letter, but it has to be a meaningful cover letter. And it's certainly a place where you can say more, where you can tell the client why specifically you want to be at that particular location, and not just location meaning the venue or the club, but the geographics. Particularly if you're looking to relocate, it's important to make sure that the fit is right as far as the location is concerned. But in any industry, it's just poor etiquette not to send a cover letter. So you absolutely want to send a cover letter, and it certainly can give you, you know, can add value to the other materials that you're sending. So it is one of your career marketing tools. Yes.
Well, Michelle, tremendous value. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know that if anybody needs your assistance with their resume, the 5 pillars, or, you know, writing that cover letter and guidance in finding that next position, you are the go-to person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom?
All right, Corey. Guess what? We're going to turn things around and ask you some questions. So we're going to spend a little time making sure everyone gets to know Corey Sabin a little bit. So Corey, first let's tell tell everybody about your background and what brought you to the development of the Video Bolt company.
Thanks, Tom. I spent 15 years in broadcasting and news, and you know, after being in 2008, frankly, just turned around and said, okay, I've done everything I've wanted to do in that space. I've interviewed everybody I've wanted to interview and embraced that entrepreneurial spirit in one of the worst economies. And what we realized at videobolt.com is the same thing that people realize when they watch the news, no matter what they watch. Why do we remember things that we remember? Because it's a story. Stories penetrate, stories create a reaction, and stories are what your members engage with. So what we do at videobolt.com is we help clubs tell that story in 1-minute videos, just like you guys use for your recruiting, because we realize everybody's tethered to their device. And in this day and age, with so many entities competing for our attention, you want to stand out. And with the metrics supporting video as it does, what we do at VideoBolt is we get on the phone with the club, talk about their needs, do an assessment, and then we create a content plan. Our team writes up their scripts, sends it to them for approval, and then 48 hours later, they have a video with a professional spokesperson telling that story that they can share on social media, email marketing, play on the TVs throughout the club, highlight construction, food and beverage, whatever it may be.
Corey, tell me a few of your first clients in the club business and how they started to use you.
Well, the first was, as my kids affectionately call him, Papa J, JD Pietro. And my first was Jay at Boca West, where, you know, we were talking and he was putting out an event for Stay and Play. And it was in a magazine. And, you know, and we had never worked in the club space. We'd always worked in other spaces. And we took that and turned it into a dynamic video that told the story, realizing that Boca West is so special. And the image of the golf course is nice, but if you have other images and you can tell the story about why you should join, that would be more special. So we created that for him. We showed it to him. And it was just like, hey, Jay, you know, we were meeting. This is for you. And he used, I effing love this, for lack of a better term, is what he had said. I remember it like yesterday. And he said, this is great. Why we should be using these regularly. And that's how he started using us. And then he told the gentleman at St. Andrews and the Polo Club and Addison Reserve, etc. And it kind of spread throughout South Florida. And then we were fortunate to spend some time with you and Kurt and Dick at a conference in Orlando several years ago. And we said to you guys, hey, people are not reading those long form job listings. We should also provide that teaser in a video so they can get a sense of what the club looks like and what the position is and if they're the right person for it.
Yeah, one of the first ones I remember seeing you do was for Michael McCarthy. It was a construction update or something like that. And I just thought, wow, that's fantastic. And I know I've seen several other variations of your videos. Tell me about some of the newer things you're doing. You and I were talking about perhaps some training videos for staff, H2Bs coming over for season.
Yeah, absolutely. So what the clubs have done now is a lot of them are realizing, and I think all of your team hit on it already, was technology and the role it plays. Well, when you're bringing over the kids from overseas, or frankly, anybody 35 and younger that's digitally native, and you hand them the book and say, this is our training, well, they're not going to open it up and they're not going to really invest in it. And some clubs naturally have PowerPoints that they put together and they share that with them. Well, what they've been doing is sending it to our team. And our team has been putting a professional spokesperson on it and breaking these trainings that are typically a week long into segments of 10 to 15 minutes on a topic that's digestible, and then putting it together with their PowerPoint and telling that story and introducing some of the team members that they're going to meet when they do arrive at the club and what their role is. And in some cases, it's the team members being on camera and giving a little bit about their background. And other, it's a picture with, here's 3 bullets you should know about Joe Smith. Joe Smith does X, Y, and Z. So there's different ways that they're doing that, but the value is that person overseas who's flying over is already getting a feel for the culture of your club and what it's about. And we know how competitive it is to compete for some of these workers from overseas. So your goal is to stand out and highlight these differentiators. They're also using The videos now, particularly what we've seen is a lot of COVID updates, a lot of updates on construction projects, or trying to push the membership to vote in favor of a construction project, if you will, by putting out a series of pieces. Here's what it will do. Here's what it will do for your property value. Here's when to vote. Here's how to vote. That's one of the first we did with Michael McCarthy at Addison, was pushing that across so that they can get their project approved. So there's numerous ways, you know, when life gets back to normal, a lot of clubs will do F&B events. Some of the clubs down here and that we're working with are pushing out, you know, Passover and Easter events now, realizing that the static menu doesn't tell a story, but let's tell a full story. And this is what we're going to do for a drive-up Seder, or if you need to take things to go, and we're hosting a minimal amount of people. So there's numerous ways that people are working with us, and we always learn something new, and of course can share best practices.
Gotcha. Well, one of the things that I think is great about Video Bolt is you all help in the writing of the script and the development. It's not as though everything has to be perfected. People can rough out ideas with you and your team, and then you make it come to life. I think that's one of the things. Talk a little bit about the team that you have at Video Bolt and how things work if people want to bring you on board to help with some video production for their club.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Well, a lot of people, when they're thinking of video, will think about, hey, let's have the guy come into town with all the cameras and all the equipment, and they'll put together that beautiful 10-minute video that's on their website, and that's a great video. Well, the point of that video is if someone's checking out the club and deciding whether or not they want to live there. We then take your messaging and say, let's do content marketing. Let's talk about what your needs are. Are you looking to attract members? Are you looking to engage membership, recruitment, retainment, etc.? And then you get a dedicated producer. And we see other companies out there and they're sitting at the beautiful set, but what we've heard from the GMs is their challenge is they've got to write the script about a month in advance, send it to them, send the images. And as we know, things change in a month. So what our team does is they work with the club and they talk to them about what they want to get out. And we ask them to send us those elements from that long form video that perhaps they have, or some images. And then we repurpose those. You have the spokesperson then writing up a script based on what the general manager wants to get out, and that script is provided to them. They go over it and make any changes that they want, and then 48 hours later, they have a video that our team has written, produced using their images, their branding, their logo, and everything that they use everywhere, with the goal being that it's 60 seconds or less, because once you get over about 80 seconds, you're losing about 72% of your audience. It's trying to get that one message out there, not jamming in 5 events. It's jamming in 1 to 2 events, talking about something that someone said. They're updating the president's letter. They're sharing about, we just did one for an annual meeting and why it was important for people to attend, etc. But the biggest commodity and the biggest thing that we hear from clubs is they love the fact that the turnaround time is great, that we're writing all of the messaging, and most importantly, the price. And they look at it as Brett Morris over at Admirals said recently. He looks at it as a great tool because his marketing staff is relatively small. So this becomes a worthwhile outsourcing, if you will, so that they're constantly engaging membership and keeping them up to date, depending on what your season is, if you're in season or out of season, and of course, letting them know what's happening. But he doesn't have to have his 1 or 2 dedicated marketing people working on it. They have someone else that's working on it. That's much less money than an employee with no HR benefits.
Thank you, Corey. I'm going to turn it over to Kurt for a couple questions in a second, but I just wanted to make sure everybody truly understood. I know you have a lot of knowledge around video and how long it should be and what people are looking for and how many. Can you give us a little bit of the facts about, what's the ideal length? How many a day should a club be sending out? How many a week before people start tuning out even great videos? Give us some of that information.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. One of the things I was just reading on from a company called Bright Cove that monitors these things is your audience has become spoiled. So what do I mean by that? They say that 87% of us expect TV quality. when they're watching something. So the first thing I always say is avoid the typical mistakes of something like this, because when you're shooting a video like this, you're going to get the bars on the side, or the shaky video like this. They say the iPhone really hurts the brand because there is so much content out there that people are looking for that, lack of a better term, not flashiness, but the high quality, because the lack of quality turns them off. So that's something to be aware of. The other thing to be aware of is if you're doing this yourself and you have the gear, is your lighting, your microphones, wear a microphone. Talk about the concept and what the goal is. I think it's so important to have a plan. And when we're working with a club, we like to say, hey, let's start off with something that says, hey, communication has evolved since the club first opened. We've gone from the yellow book and flyers to having our phones everywhere. That's why XYZ Club is using video with a picture of the club general manager and maybe a quote on the screen, because now that GM is seen as a thought leader. Now that GM is seen by the members as someone that's forward thinking. And it ties into everything that your team has alluded to earlier, the importance of forward thinking and anticipating problems, because you're dealing with 4 generations of audience. And, you know, I'm one of those nerds that's constantly looking at that, but you could easily look at the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or any major paper, and what they're doing is they're giving you the article with the video next to it, because they realize that some people watch, some people read, and with 4 generations, the people 35 and under, for example, are not Googling it like I would do. They're going to YouTube first, whereas the people 35 to 55 are actually the largest growing base of YouTube consumers right now, because they don't want to know how the coffee's made, they just want a cup. So speed and time is important to everything.
Thank you. And Kurt, I have a couple follow-up questions, but I wanted to give you a chance to slide in here and talk with Corey a little bit.
Well, and I'm just thinking, I knew Corey when, you know, it's been a lot of years since he was actually on TV down here in South Florida. I'm in Jupiter. Corey's office is probably, what are you, 2 miles from where I stand here?
Yeah, absolutely. Right across from the Cardinals. Yes.
Yeah, the Cardinal spring training. You know, as you're talking, Corey, I'm just thinking back, probably we'll end up with a question here, but kind of a stream of consciousness thought. You know, I remember when you and I first talked about this some years ago, and it was probably, as Tom noted, right after I saw one of Michael McCarthy's videos where they got, it was either 81 or 87% membership support for a capital project after the you know, a number of things. But what Michael, I think, most strongly pointed to was the video narrative that went along with the marketing package that went out on that project, and he became a raving fan pretty quickly. And I'm feeling like I'm an infomercial for you, which isn't my intent here, Corey, but since we started doing this, we tracked, and I think we're 4 or 5 times exponentially more openings to our emails since we embedded videos in there. I also think back, and I've started to see a number of clubs that are doing this now. On our website, you interviewed several of us in little snippets, 30-second, 45-second responses to various questions that we often get asked, the FAQs to, you know, a search firm. But I've now started to see several clubs that have started to do that and embed those on their front-facing, you know, open to the universe websites. So it's been pretty interesting. I also think, you know, South Florida, and I'm sure, you know, probably those of you are going to groan as I say this, but those of you that aren't in South Florida, yeah, it's been kind of an epicenter for some pretty innovative thinking and activity in a lot of clubs, because everybody's so competitive down here in a very positive way, but very competitive. And I've now seen just about every one of the highest performing clubs that I run into down here and now across the country utilizing this sort of member communication or external communication, or as you noted, I hadn't seen any of the training with H2Bs or other staff, but now I'm going to go watching for all of that. I guess, you know, my long-winded build-up in question, Corey, if you're not divulging something that we shouldn't know about, what's been the greatest success of any of these videos that you've been doing for one of the clubs, where you've just seen somebody who's ready to, you know, throw in the towel, I'm not going to do this event anymore, we're not going to try to get support for this master plan, and you've been part of their solution. What comes to mind when I ask you that? If you can share specifics, if it's
absolutely.
Dorothy or Morris, they'd love for you to do that. So what comes to mind?
Absolutely. Well, Kurt, thank you. First and foremost, I do remember our first conversation when I came to you with that idea, and you were interested in it. And I do appreciate all of the support you and the team have provided over the years, and we love working with you. You know, we always tell clubs, and sometimes they'll buy, you know, it's a subscription. They'll do 1 a month, 2 a month, 4 a month. And sometimes you'll get some clubs that'll say, well, I want to save this video for something special, and I want to use it on this. And we tell them, well, you don't want to do that. What you want to do is communicate regularly with video to get people into that modality. And you mentioned Michael McCarthy, and yeah, Michael comes to mind because I remember we were talking and he said one of the challenges that he was going to be facing was merging the POA with the HOA. And that was something that he was concerned about, was taking it under one umbrella, and he wanted to get support. And we mapped it out. We said, well, what are you communicating with the members? And he talked about different presentations, etc. And I said, okay, now think about the member who's sitting in that boardroom watching that presentation. Within 8 minutes, they're probably looking at their phone or playing words with friends. So why don't we validate a lot of what you're saying and highlight the value? Meaning, let's take some of the high level information from that presentation, put it in the video, and then let's create a separate video for the people that attended and the people who didn't attend. So if you attended last night's meeting, you got a video that said something like, if you attended last night's meeting, here were 3 of the takeaways and here's what it means. And some of the objectives were, but here's what, you know, what it really is. If you didn't attend, you got something similar with the messaging saying that if you didn't attend last night's meeting, here's what happened. Then we let it percolate because, you know, members are going to gossip. So what we did is we took all the gossip and we said, let's address the concerns. Some of the things you may have heard are da-da-da-da-da. Well, the truth is this, this, and that. And getting it out there. Now voting is open. So we did a whole campaign around it, and it worked out very favorably for Michael, and he was really happy with it. And, you know, that's a lot of this, that's a smart way to use the videos beyond, you know, hey, we're having lobster and caviar night. You know, that's nice as well. It shows a picture and it sells tickets. Another way that comes to mind, Kurt, is something another club did. They were having a comedian, this is pre-COVID, obviously, come in the house. And I always remember this because the comedian they were having, I'd never heard of. And I was thinking they're selling tickets for this event with this comedian. It was a flyer, and people are going to say, well, it's not Eddie Murphy. It's not Kevin Hart. I've never heard of them. So what our team did is they wrote the script, but used snippets from the comedian from YouTube, and started off that way, and then said, okay, we made you laugh. Now this guy's going to be at the club, and here's an event to come to, etc. Because it created the feeling. And that's another great tool about video, is it creates a feeling. It's visual. We process it faster. You're stimulating 2 senses. So those would be 2 different unique ways that jump out to me.
It's interesting, and it brings back bad memories of the last time I did a comedian when I was managing a club. I said never again. So, and I think that the last thing is just another observation. While I say Corey's 2 miles away from me, I haven't seen Corey physically in the same space for months and months and months. So, you know, it's kind of interesting in this day and age. I look at the screen and I see Kyle Ruck up in Chicago and others of you in other parts of the country, Joe Napolitano up in New York. And, you know, I think of that now too. You might as well be 2 miles away because we don't see one another. You guys do turn this around really quickly. And we so much appreciate that because we're in deadlines and everything that we do. And my last comment, and Tom, back to you, is you got a really great team. We love working with the folks over there. And you know, I've gotten to know several of the on-air talent over time. Lisa's applauding there too. It's been a lot of fun. Congrats to you for what you've been able to achieve over there.
No, thank you. Thank you. And it's, you know, it's every industry, but we really have a passion for the club industry. We really understand it. We know how to tell those stories. And, you know, we're working with clubs all over the country, and it's interesting to hear some of their challenges that they'll share with us. And we'll say, okay, you know what, we've encountered that in the past, and we almost become a life coach in a sense, because we say, well, here's how so-and-so worked on that problem. And you may want to put something out that addresses it this way, and, you know, and get that message out.
Well, and Tom, back to you, but one final comment. I actually met Corey, however many years ago, Corey, when you were doing crisis management. And you know,
Yes, I've done a
trained a
lot.
number of us back in the club management days when something happened. And I always wished that I would have had you back when I was at Isleworth and had the lineup of news media in front of the club when they wanted to come in and see Tiger. I could have used crisis management training back then, and that's what Corey. That's how I got to know you originally in this whole thing, and that probably is still a good talent that.
Absolutely. In fact, you know, we had some situations here in South Florida where I've really been helpful to some clubs. I can't get into what those were, but it's just understanding, you know, the media and how they work, and why no comment kills, and why you want to at least control the dialogue and things along those lines. And it's really just all about communication with your team.
Can we send you to DC and help them out here soon?
I don't think there is help.
Yeah, Tom, it's all yours.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks, Corey.
Hey,
Thanks,
Corey,
Kurt.
quick question. I know everybody could check out everything on videobolt.com, but one of the other things that we haven't touched on is kind of the data that you could get attached to the videos when they are sent out. So talk a little bit about what people can attach to the videos so that they can get some analytics off of those videos and make decisions about future communications.
Sure. And video analytics are so important if you think about it. It's you're sending out your text or your flyer or whatever your e-newsletter is, that's going in email and it's going on Facebook, and maybe it's on your members page on your website. But you have to remember, a majority of us are mobile. 96% of us are never 5 feet from a device, and that's where we're interacting all day long. So to that point, statistically, you can just Google web video statistics and you'll be shocked. Like, for example, you put the video in an email and the same message in text, the email should get about a 300% higher open rate. Why? It's just a simple click. Then you think about Facebook. If Facebook were a country, it would be larger than China. Facebook is where the number one, for lack of a better term, social media site. You put the message in text, you put the message in video, the video organically is going to do 135% better if you let it autoplay and you have the transcripts with it. You always want the transcripts, you always want quality, quality, quality. I can't stress enough, don't shoot stuff on your phone, poor audio, poor lighting. Then of course there's Instagram, there's Twitter, wherever you're communicating with the members. I love when I walk into a club and, you know, I see the video playing on the screens throughout, and they've got the closed captioning on, highlighting something that they're doing, highlighting member thoughts, etc. So there's so many things to do with it, and statistically it does much better than text.
Yeah. Thank you, Corey. And a couple other things, some things that you've helped us with and some other clubs have used is announcement videos for new hires, whether it be a new chef or a general manager. I think that's a really nice touch. So it's basically kind of taking the text that usually goes out, we're introducing our new chef, this is where he or she's worked before, and adding a little more context, some quotes, some pictures, maybe some food pics of from their portfolio. I really like that. I think that's something clubs can be thinking about. It's a nice piece for the new teammate, but it's also really nice for the members, and it gives them a little more of a feel for who this new key employee is going to be.
Yeah, our team loves doing those for clubs because, you know, people again will say, oh, who's the new person? And clubs will not only just do it for the GM, they'll do it for the marketing person. They'll get to know the new chef, and we'll do a piece just about his or her specialties and highlight their value, etc. But it's a great way to introduce key team members to the rest of the staff and to the team.
Yeah, one other thing that I really like that we've been talking about is clubs that have had to social distance, but also lots of seasonal clubs out there. And, you know, how do they get messages out to their members about what's going on in the off season? And we've seen some clubs starting to talk to you, Corey, about doing, you know, just a 90-second, 2-minute video about what's going on at the club, why the club's closed or due to COVID, or what's going on at our seasonal club. What are they working on during the off season? And I think those videos are really smart. We've seen a lot of new managers also coming in, shooting a couple-minute video, just kind of introducing some of their monthly new concepts, why they're making the decisions they're making. I know that's not, you've really expressed how easy it is to make, but there's just all kinds of different concepts that managers can use to pump out great information.
I love the idea of, like, for example, they'll go full steam in season and push out 1 or 2 or 3 of these things a month, highlighting everything that's happening, then recapping events, showing the pictures of the people who attended, because they're showing people having a good time. Then, of course, what they'll do is they'll talk about out of season. Hey, we had a wonderful season. If we can't wait to see you next year, here's what's going on. And then as the members are gone for those several months, they're putting out videos that say something like, hey, you're gone and maybe you're enjoying life somewhere else, but here's what we're working on. We're putting in a new dining room, we're putting in a new oven, whatever it may be. And they're just telling that story because it's constant member engagement, because all of you know your members are the most valuable tool out there. And the more you can keep them engaged, the better it is. You're over communicating, and the pictures just really tell the story with the person guiding them through. It's all about story, story, story. In my background in news, they used to say facts tell, story sell, because they realized that the remote control is a weapon and you would change the channel. Well, if you think about it, your audience is the same thing. Even though they're your members and they're vested, you're competing for their attention with everything else and with everyone else.
Understood. And I'm going to take the last couple minutes here just to remind everybody that tomorrow we'll be back. Corey has sessions with Sam Lindsley, Ted Galleri, Armin Sooney, and Len Simard. And that'll be 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern. And then I was just going to spend the last 2 minutes. I was going to pull Annette in and just talk about, I know this isn't a visual platform, but I just wanted to thank you for what you've been doing with our podcast. You've been hosting the KK&W podcast, which has just been wonderful. And Annette, I thought I might bring you in to talk a little bit about the experience and what you think you got out of it. And again, I know you're not in the podcast business, but I do think it's a valuable tool and skill set you bring to the table as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's, I started my career, ironically, in sports radio right out of college. My first gig was traveling the country with the Miami Hurricanes and the Miami Heat. And then, and then did that for 5 years, and then got into TV and did broadcasting and news. So I love the podcasting format because it just reminds me of being in talk radio, where it was a 4-hour format and you just started off with, one topic and you saw where the conversation took you. And Annette's been so instrumental. And Annette, why don't you give a plug for the podcast and some of the wonderful things and topics that we've had?
It's been a lot of fun to do, actually, and it's less rigid and more free form. And we talked about New Year, new intentions, and I think we're just under an hour when we recorded that podcast, and we just kind of had some general guidelines of where we're going to go, and we had fun with it. And it was just a real fun to banter back and forth with you and talk about that topic. And I know Jody had a great experience recording her podcast as well. And we have many more that are planned and that are going to be released as well. And it's just a really great way for us to communicate and kind of be thought partners for the industry. The plan in the future is, as things come up or as we have topics that we want to highlight, we're going to work with you, Corey, and record them as we go. Lisa and I have one planned where we're going to talk. We've spoken on this before, but we've talked about grit and passion and perseverance. And Lisa and I spoke about that before the pandemic. So we thought we'd revive that for our next podcast. So a little teaser there, but really fun. And you asked the best questions. So thanks, Corey. It's been a lot of fun working with you on that.
Well, I look forward to the one with Lisa and, of course, Michelle down the road, and Armin and anybody else. And really, there's another one that's coming up that I'm really looking forward to, and that's with Tom and Kurt and the guys from CLA and the Club Leadership Alliance. And really, it just seems like such a dynamic group that can solve so many problems for a club and come in and provide so many solutions. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that and getting that one in the can for all of you to hear.
Well, Corey, as we wrap up, I just want to thank you. The club industry's lucky to have your talents, and you've really helped a lot of people. And I think there's a lot more folks that could benefit from what Video Bolt brings to the table. So thank you. We look forward to chatting some more with you tomorrow. And we thank everybody for checking in, and we'll see everyone tomorrow.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all.
Corey.
Thanks, Corey.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Corey.
Thanks, Corey.
Bye.